Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on debugging production errors from your IDE. We're going to get started here. Looks like we've got some folks that joined. It appears that we're in a bonus round right now, so that sounds very exciting. Let me bring the safe harbor slide up, which you all came to see. I'll give you a second to digest all that. I know it's very important to you. And then moving on to our session. So today we're going to talk about how we can plan, debug, collaborate from our IDEs using New Relic CodeStream. My name is Eric Mindelhammer. I'm a senior technology architect here at New Relic. Work with folks, customers all over the globe with New Relic, helping them understand better how to use our solutions and dive deep on the tools that we have and show them best how to work with the products that we have. I'm just going to apologize in advance. There's some construction going on in my neighborhood right now. It was quiet all day until about 5 minutes ago. It seems that it's subsided, but please speak up or drop a note in the chat if there's anything you need me to repeat. I'm hoping that it stays quiet from here on out. So today's session is going to be a bit of a demo. I'm going to show you walk through the various features that we have available to you to work on collaborating, debugging, and improving your code. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So really, what New Relic can do for you as a developer, right, is to work on these three pillars, right? So collaboration, so being able to understand the code that you work on with your coworkers in the context of the code itself, and then being able to debug without having to change that context. So being in your IDE and having access to all the information you need to understand what's going on with your code, and then combining those and improving overall the quality of the code you release, as well as the experience of the folks that are using it. And we do that with CodeStream. So CodeStream is the tool that allows you to get production telemetry into your IDE. And there's a list of features here. I'm not going to go through each one line by line, but we'll see them as we go through the demo. But the idea of now having the features that you normally use from tools all over your organization and various different, whether that's in a tool like Relic for observability or the way that you decide on what you're going to work on through issue trackers and bug trackers, we can now bring that all into one place to make things easier for you as a practitioner to not have to leave that context of where you're most comfortable doing your work. And this is just a quote that we like to share from Google's State of DevOps report. I'll read it real quick. So we found that a shared responsibility model of operations reflected in the degree to which developers and operators are jointly empowered to contribute to reliability also predicts better reliability outcomes. And really what that means is that we believe that giving folks the information they need and the tools they're most comfortable in will lead to better collaboration. No matter whom they are, bringing that together in one place is always going to lead to a better result. So with that, I'm going to switch over to demonstrating the product. So what we're looking at here is what's known as a workload, excuse me, in New Relic. So this is a feature that allows you to bring together all of the entities or pieces of your stack that you want to look at in one place. And this is a high-level view that shows you the overall status. In this case, we're looking at what would be considered the fulfillment chain of our e-commerce application. So these services are combined here just by the nature of the fact that they work in that fulfillment chain. And you can see here we've got services as well as hosts, EBS volumes, our load balancers, all in one view. And I can see here that within the last 3 hours, there's been some performance issues where this workload was degraded. If I happened to be in this service, or I'm sorry, in this view at the time that occurred, I would see each one of the components that had degraded service showing that. But this happened a little while ago, so I'm going to try to do some investigation. So I'm going to go to the errors inbox. That's a link down here at the bottom to try to find out what was happening. So here is what we call errors inbox. So this is a list of all the errors that have occurred recently within the components that are part of that workload. In this case, the errors are sorted in order of their frequency. So the ones that are occurring the most frequent appear at the top. And there's some high level information about, the graph of how often they were occurring, and then the meta information of if it's been resolved or not and who it's assigned to. I'm going to take a look at this error at the top here. It's this runtime error, process failure at shipping. And now I'm viewing that one specific error, and I can see, the profile information of how much it's occurring, some of the key attributes that we've picked up. So if there's any correlations on the metadata behind all of the transactions that contributed to this error, I can see what they have in common here. On the right side of the screen, I can see, of course, the stack trace, and these are individual instances of the error, so I can scroll through them and see any of the differences that are occurring between them. So even the individual metadata that we can collect on each instance of that error occurring, you can see I have logs that came from this one particular instance of the error, as well as the attributes that we're able to collect on that transaction. So things that are, related to the metadata about the response code, any of the headers, and then any custom information that I've added to this transaction. I can go a little deeper if I want to look into the individual attributes and see how often they were occurring and look for correlations there as I'm trying to debug. But at this point, I want to get a little bit more information. So I want to go to the source code and find out what was occurring at that time and where this error came from. So I'll click on this button, open an IDE. Sorry, and you can see here, do that again. So when I click that button, I'm taken to my IDE, which is in this case, Visual Studio Code. And the information about the error appears in context, and I'm able to see exactly where it's occurring in the source code. So here's the stack trace that I have, and I'm able to click through it to navigate the various lines of it to try to debug and find out what's going on. And I can see here that this error is a process failure in shipping, and I'm in my fulfillment service, and I don't know exactly what's going on here, so I've got to reach out for help. And what I'm looking at here is the view that CodeStream gives me into that one error. So this is the CodeStream plugin within my IDE. You can see how that's highlighted here. I have the ability to communicate with my coworkers right here in the panel. There's a comment that was left here previously, but this might be the first time I'm seeing this, so I can start a conversation here. You can see I have the ability to tag people in that conversation to get other folks on board and help me troubleshoot. And I'll just demonstrate how that works here. I can just add a comment. You can see it appears right in line. And if I go back to my browser just to show you in this error, let me refresh the screen quickly. I've got this discussion tab here on this error. And you can see this was the original comment that we saw in that panel. And this is the comment that I just added. And this demonstrates the ability to conduct these conversations about errors that are going on either here or from the IDE. So if this involves teams, say operational folks that were able to help troubleshoot this error, or just general communication of status, the conversation is two-way and can occur from the IDE or in this tab here. So that is the idea of being able to take an error from production and then go right to it in the IDE. What I want to show you, though, is the other features that CodeStream gives me as a developer in not only finding and troubleshooting errors, but in my daily workflow. So now this is the CodeStream extension that is part of my IDE. And you can see I've got several panes of information that are available to me. And I'll just describe the general flow of what we're looking at here. So we have integrations with all of issue trackers, bug trackers, and at the top here you see a pane for pull requests. So I can connect to GitHub. In this case, I don't have any pull requests that are open, but I can maintain my pull request workflow like I would in my browser, but do it right here from my IDE. So say I can click this, open up a pull request. It understands the context of the code that I'm working on, the branches that are created for this particular repository, and then I can open the pull request as well as comment on it, approve it, request reviewers. All the normal workflow that you would do in your normal pull request workflow can be done right here from your IDE. At the bottom, I have integrations with. Let's see if I can show the. So all kinds of issue trackers and bug trackers. So this, gives me the ability to prioritize my work. So understanding what's being requested of me, what are the current issues that are open on the code that I'm working on. So this is also scoped to the repository that I have open here. So I can see, the whichever issues are assigned based on a filter that I've created. So here I can use, let's see if I can show you this is the filter language that GitHub uses, and any tool that we integrate with, whatever query language that is, you're going to be able to set up custom queries here to customize the view that you see. And you can see if I, click on one of these, I've got an issue, and this is the metadata that comes from that issue. And CodeStream is offering to create a branch for me that I can begin working on. So, if I'm in my main branch, it's got the feature name that came from the issue tracker itself. And I can start working on this immediately, and it handles all of the creating the branch and making sure that I'm working on a feature branch that I can then merge once I'm done with the work. But I'm not going to do that just now. And now I'm going to get into the specific features that I have available to me within CodeStream. So CodeStream has this notion of what's known as a feedback request. So this is like a pull request, but it's a little bit more lightweight. And I'll show you an example. If I was to edit some code, let me open up, say, a file that I know I can add some work to. So if I were to make an edit, save my work, go back to CodeStream, I can open what's called a feedback request. So here, I'm basically asking for some feedback from my coworkers, and it's similar to the way that a pull request works if you're used to that workflow. But instead of having to commit anything or send it anywhere upstream, I can take the set of diffs that I've worked on right here and ask my coworkers to approve it. So here I can say, again, I can leave a message for my coworkers. I'm going to tag my coworker Dennis because I know he worked on this quite a bit. You can see I have all the common features marked down and at mentions like I've shown here, emojis, which we all love to use, attachments, and then tags, which I can use for categorization. CodeStream has recommended these folks that I can add to the message. I'll just create this now. It's appeared here, and if I open it, I can see what my coworkers will see when they view this. So I tag Dennis, and anyone who views this feedback request can look at the changes that I've made without having to change anything on their local environment. So this doesn't require any kind of stashing or syncing with branches or anything like that. All of my changes that I've created locally are sent in a diff remotely to anyone who's going to use this. So I've only changed the one file here, but if I had a list of files, I can click through each one of them, view the diffs, and then continue on the workflow. So whoever's reviewing this can either add to it, approve it, or request more changes. And that allows me to communicate back and forth without ever, again, leaving my IDE and in context with the same code that I'm working on. I'll move on to what's known as code marks. If I'm working on some code, that I want to ask someone a question about, I can just highlight a line of code And I've got a little glyph that's appeared here, and I can add a comment. Now it's tagged the person that last worked on this line of code. This is my coworker Ada. CodeStream is able to inspect the code base underneath using the metadata from the Git repository. I can say, you can see there, not only do I have the comment, but it's highlighted, added the line of code here to put it into context, as well as I can add other code blocks from other parts if there's multiple things that I want to ask about. But in this case, it's just included the line that I've added. And you can see here now, an icon has appeared next to that line of code. So anyone who has this repository cloned to their machine will be able to see that there is something here that someone has left a comment, and it's viewable and has a similar workflow where comments here, a typical discussion workflow. And this icon remains here for everyone to see it. I have the option as well. Once we've resolved the issue and got to the bottom of what we're talking about, I can say resolve discussion to indicate that this is not anything that needs attention anymore, but the icon stays here to serve as documentation for anyone that may want to view it in the future. The same context, always here, available to anyone that's going to work on this. And finally, we have our observability panel. So this is where the telemetry data from New Relic is incorporated directly into the IDE. So when we started the session out, we came from New Relic. So in that case, I have observability on the top of my mind, right? I'm looking at, my services and all of my components that make up the things that I care about, looking at the general health, and then discovering something and working my way to the code. However, in my day-to-day, I may just be working on something, and I can see here all of the errors that are occurring in the service that I'm currently working on. So in the same way that, I have the context available to me if I'm looking top down from the aspect of performance observability, as I'm working on my code, I can then find errors that are occurring within it. Say, for instance, this error that we saw before. And by clicking on it, I'm brought back into the context within New Relic where this error is occurring. And I can, again, start a discussion here, or, tag anyone that I know that may be involved in this and start my troubleshooting session from my IDE. So those are the main features of CodeStream, and we've gone through those same use cases of being able to plan what I'm working on by looking at issues, being able to collaborate by commenting on code, and then debugging both from the IDE and starting from New Relic, looking at the health of my services. So at this point, I'd like to open up to any questions that anyone might have. I'm just scanning through the chat. So there's a question from Mohan about the security concerning source code, and how CodeStream works with that source code. So there are a lot of different ways that works, depending on what features you're using. CodeStream does not do anything with source code until you include it yourself, right? So it has to be included in a comment, or pasted into that annotation that I showed you that allows you to add other code blocks. Those bits of code are stored along with the commentary but everything else that it does, it works on the Git repository locally. So the concern of that code and where it goes only starts when you make comments on it. But there's nuance to that as well. I think that's probably a good conversation to have with your Relic representative to enumerate how that's going to work in your exact environment, because it's always going to be different depending on how you're going to use the tool. Question: JetBrains product support? Yep, we do support JetBrains. Rachel's posted the answer to that. All the different editors that we support. Is there a roadmap for Eclipse? I don't know specifically yet. I just don't know right now when Eclipse will be on the roadmap. Sorry. I don't see any other questions. Question: how do you install CodeStream? So it's depends on the IDE that you use. In all cases, it's an extension, so it's specific to that IDE, right? In the case of VS Code, you would send it as a standard standard extension. I'm going to search for CodeStream, install it from here. I'm not sure how it works in every other IDE, but again, they're all standard extensions. So whatever marketplace there is for the IDE, you can find it there and install it. There are some other things that you need to do to get the full functionality, like, in particular, if you want to connect to your code, right, you've got to let New Relic know which repository that code is associated with. You can do that with in your New Relic agent. There's a way that you can add in an environment variable that will annotate the repository, which is helpful not only the repository and the build number, which is helpful not only for the telemetry, because now you can identify telemetry to performance to repository and build number, but that's the mechanism that allows CodeStream to understand when there's an error, exactly where which repository that's occurring in, and that's how that association is made. So CodeStream is installed as an extension, and then you add that metadata to your application, and those two things connect together. Question: are you able to view all the stack traces from errors inbox in the IDE, or only the one that you click open in an IDE? So you're saying, so I get a list here. Let me expand this. So the idea is that I see the errors that are assigned to me, right? And that's a function of both errors inbox and CodeStream. So if I click on, I want to make sure I might not have this code checked out right now. Hopefully this will work. I don't have that. I'll show you on one of these. So I have the ability to assign an error, right? So I could pick anyone in my organization, assign that to them, and then mark it resolved or not. And that is also a two-way flow that works with errors inbox. So if I go back to, I believe my error is here. I'm sorry, here. I have the same ability, right? I can resolve an error or assign it to someone in my organization. So I've got that view here filter to errors that are assigned to me. And then below that, I am able to see errors scoped to a particular service. And this is based on the repository that I have open in my editor at the same time. So in this case, I'm working with a monorepo. So I've got several services that all share the same repository. So I can toggle them here to see, each one of the services you're seeing here is served by the same monorepo that I have cloned right now. So I can toggle between them and see the errors by each service. So you can see all of the errors, but it's always going to be filtered to this service that you have in scope. And if that only happens to be one repository that has one service, you'll see them all in one place. I hope that answers the question. I don't see the open an IDE button on New Relic. Does it need to be enabled to configure somewhere? Not quite sure. It could have to do with your account status. I'm not exactly sure. I wish I could help you, but I think that's a support question. Is it available for all users or just the admin user? It's available for all users. As far as enabling it, Mark, I don't know. I don't think so, but it could be anything. Can you share some examples where we can use CodeStream and Jira integration? I understand developers can see test stories in CodeStream UI. However, can they also directly update such items? I don't have that enabled here. I don't have it, a direct connection to a Jira instance. But as far as I know, yes, all of these, administrative capabilities are available. But I don't know specifically. This would be how I would create one, say within GitHub. But I don't have the Jira link set up. Still have some time, so any questions, feel free, anybody. Yeah, great. Thanks, Rachel. I guess I'll go ahead and close the session. Thank you, everyone. Hope I was able to demonstrate how we can help you with your development workflow. Thanks again.